one from, let's see. I got to pop up myself, but it wasn't a technical support issue. Here is an invoice, right? You owe money. And if you want to figure out why you would owe Norton money, call this 800 number. And when you call that 800 number, you are going into a call center. That call center is mainly in India. If you have ever heard of the Reply All podcast, they've actually done a couple of great podcasts on Indian call centers and this technical support scam. Check that out. There's another other couple good articles out there about it. There's a lot of call centers in India, and they're very easy to set up. And some people don't even know when they first get there that they're working for a non-legitimate one. But these could be anywhere. Just happen to be a lot of them in India. Now, all those I showed you were things that have happened in the last year, but again, as part of this evolution, not revolution, we've actually first started seeing these and writing and warning people about these back in 2010. So they're really not new. I showed you one example. Here's another example where it's actually a pop-up and it looks like it's an error message. And it's got a technical support number. It's got an 800 number you can call. And again, I don't know if you've dealt with internet companies, but the last thing they do is give you a phone number, right? Have you ever seen a phone number where you could call for technical support at Facebook or Instagram or Google or any? So right there, that's suspicious enough. Everybody wants to send you to a web page, but this would get people nervous and upset. And it was toll free, so why not call? And then there's an operator standing by to talk you into some expensive technical support plan to fix your problem. Some of the latest versions of these guys are actually asking you to download TeamViewer, which is a remote control product. It'll help us get on your computer and figure out what's going on. And then they've taken control of your computer, and then they try to get into your bank account once they're on your machine and get you to type in your credit card number or your password for your bank so that they can capture it and then empty it. So you're going to lose a lot more than $129 at this point. All right. We're actually blocked this type of this type of the scam where you pop up that phony error message 191 million times in 2020. So there's a lot of this out there. Okay. What else we got here? Let's move on to this one. This is another interesting one. All these are trying to get you to call them, right? And whether it's an error message or sometimes they will call you. Some days I get 3 to 5 of these calls a day. And it may be Microsoft or Dell, or it's the power company that's going to turn off my power if I don't call, or it's a social security office, or it's taxes, anything they can think of to get you to call that 800 number and then steal from you. This was kind of an interesting one. So I went up to my favorite search engine, DuckDuckGo, and I put in installing Norton. And this is the responses I got. Now, Norton was part of Symantec until last year. So I know these websites really well, or the legitimate websites. And so when you look at this list, I can look at it, and all these are Norton websites, Norton owned. And there's one up there from YouTube where you get down to the one that's the kind of purple. It's because I clicked on it. I'm looking at that and I go, I've never seen that domain before. I don't know that website. We don't own that. So of course I clicked on it, just what we tell people not to do. And it took me to this website. And right away, I know it's not a Norton site. It's got www.norton.com right there on the top. And it's got yellow, which used to be a big Symantec color. We used to be a big yellow, but we don't even use yellow anymore. And I also know because there's a toll-free 800 number. It's a dead giveaway. If you don't want to call it, you can actually enter that information and give it to the scammer. And all they're doing is looking for people that are searching for help installing Norton. Now, I've seen this for Microsoft. I've seen this for Dell. I've seen this for Delta Airlines, for all sorts of companies, right? So check those domains. Here's what's really interesting. If we go down on the page too, they'll also say, hey, even though this is the Norton, even though this is the company called Norton and we want to help you, we can also help you with McAfee and AVG, which are two other security vendors as well. So yeah, but in fact, if you look at the disclaimer down on the bottom, they say, hey, wait a minute, we're just kidding. We're really not Norton. We're just here to help you. And I guess they thought that this was a way to avoid getting in trouble. And we actually took them down. So that didn't help. But what's the other thing that's interesting is the down below. Let me build that so you can see it. This is down on the bottom, the copyright notice. And first of all, you'll see that there's norton.com again, but there's no dots between it. I'm guessing so that it didn't hyperlink and actually show that it was the real Norton website. The other thing was the address. Now, the Norton headquarters is in where are they now? They're in Mountain View, California, but there's a huge office in Los Angeles. And so it's interesting they have a Los Angeles address. Since I worked at that office for a long time, I knew this wasn't the address, but I put that into the Google as well. And this is where this company's offices are. Yeah, another really good sign that this is all just a scam. Okay, looks like I'm running out of time. Let me hustle a little bit here. Ransomware, ransomware really is asterisk there because a lot of people never report they get it. They just pay the ransom. And this is really not very much a consumer problem anymore. It's more a business problem for really good reasons. That's where the money is, and they can get big bucks. But ransomware, like everything else, has evolved. It actually started 2005 through 2009 as misleading applications. All of a sudden, something would pop up on your screen and give you a system warning, and look at all those red things. You had huge problems on your system. Pay us money and we'll fix those. Now, this still exists today, but most of the people doing it try to pretend they're legitimate organizations and get your money that way so that the security companies like us won't block them from getting on the machine. We still block them from getting on machines. In that evolved into 2010 to 2011 when somebody came up with a better idea and everybody copied them. And that was basically what we called fake AV. So instead of saying there was a problem with your registry, which most users probably don't even know what the registry is, hey, we found a bunch of malware. We found 41 pieces of malware on your system. Turns out this is trial software. You probably don't even know how it got on your system because it just popped up. Some of them would have little bars that would move and animation, so it looked like it was scanning. And you would have to pay for the product if you wanted to get rid of all this malware that it found. And of course, it was really the only malware on your system. But then somebody came up with an even better idea. And around 2012, we first saw ransomware appear. In this particular case, though, the ransomware was pretending that the Justice Department, the Department of Homeland Security, and the FBI had all agreed on something, and that was that you were a criminal. And generally, it was something horrible like child pornography. So you could go to jail forever. You're in so much trouble. We're just about to break down your door and arrest you. But you know what? For 300 bucks, we'll let you off. You just pay the fine and we'll forget all about it. There were actually cases of people who would get this popped up on their computer and they would walk into police offices to turn themselves in. So some people were very convinced. The other interesting thing here is how do you pay though? Because they don't want you walking into a real police office. They want the money over online. So there's all these directions on the side saying how to unlock your computer. And the key to that was something called MoneyPack. And you may not know what MoneyPack is or remember it is probably the best way to say it, but it was a little card you could go into, say, a Walmart, and you would walk into the money center at Walmart. And right there next to Visa and MasterCard prepaid cards was MoneyPack. And you would go up and say, I want $100, and they'd put $100 on your card, and then you could go use it online to buy something like at eBay. And here's a Walgreens, back to the gift card rack, and there on the gift card rack was MoneyPack. And unfortunately, or fortunately, MoneyPack doesn't exist anymore. The company behind it, Green Dot, exists, but they stopped doing it. The actual common name of this threat back then was the FBI MoneyPack scam. So their branding was pretty much ruined. And most of the people using the MoneyPack I don't have a number, but a lot of them were actually getting the MoneyPack card in order to pay the FBI, or what they thought was the FBI. And that was most of their business. So they were so entwined with a scam that they just got out of that business. They're still doing other things, but you can't buy a MoneyPack card anymore. Okay, so this is around 2013, and then something came along that changed everything, and that was Bitcoin. Because once I encrypt your files, I can hold them for ransom, and you can pay me, and you don't have to stuff a bunch of cash in a duffel bag and throw it off a bridge. You can just pay through the computer. So I no longer have to trick you into paying me. I can just hold you hostage and get a payment and safe. And there's a little countdown timer, etc. Now, one of the problems with this, though, is my mom, if she got this, they would have no idea how to pay in Bitcoin. And so they actually had technical support organizations that would help you step through how to get a Bitcoin so you could pay them off. Some of them very polite, from what I hear. But it was really hard to sustain. And the other thing is, if you could maybe get $300, maybe $100 if you're lucky, from a consumer, well, it turns out that the bad guys figured out that you can get millions of dollars from businesses. And so this really has shifted to be a business scam. And this is one called eGregor. And here you said, hey, you've been hacked. We're on your network, and we've downloaded and encrypted all your data, which is really a problem for a business. You can recover your data and prevent data leakage to the public. So they started out just encrypting the data. If you want it back, pay for it. But in order to tighten things up, to really put the pressure on to say, hey, we're going to leak your data publicly. And some companies who haven't paid up have had all this data stolen and then posted on a website. So so that puts the pressure to pay even more. Here's your ransom note. It's on the machine, and upload it down below, and we can get going, and we'll start talking, and you can pay me. And the reason for that is these guys are a spray and pray approach. So by uploading this file, you tell them who you are. And now that they know who you are, they can look and see, well, I wonder how much they can afford to pay. And I can set the ransom at an appropriate amount for the size of the company. And I can, maximize the extortion possible. So that's really where we are with ransomware today. And it's not just on one machine. They try to get on as many machines and encrypt them all at once in order actually to shut down an organization. Okay. Let's see. All right. I wanted to talk really quickly now about attack evolution. And I wanted to show you this cool slide. I figured out how to do that yesterday, so I threw that in there. Let's move on. It used to be first generation attacks. You would have a piece of malware, and you would try to get it on somebody's machine by sending it an email or getting them to download it from a website. Second generation, we put in this, or they put in, right, this command and control server. So you might get like a Word doc, and there would be a little thing called a dropper in there. And the dropper's only job would be to go and talk to a command and control server, which would then download the malware. And the dropper was really small, and so it would theoretically harder for the good guys to catch. And you could do things with it like hide it in a Word document. But today what we do is have, or the bad guys have really expanded beyond that, and they're using a bunch of other tools, things like living off the land, dual use tools, and Active Directory attacks. And I wanted to talk a little bit about living off the land. So in order to explain what living off the land is, I think this is a pretty good metaphor. Here's a ladder. Do you think that ladder is a threat? Is that a security problem? I don't think so, right? It's just a ladder, for God's sakes. Well, how about if this ladder was leaning against your house and your upstairs window was open so somebody could just walk up the ladder and get in? So it really depends on how the ladder's used or dual use, right? Whether it's a security risk or not. So I wanted to show you what I think is the defining example of proving that this ladder could be a risk to you. Okay, that's a great Jackie Chan, and clearly a ladder can be bad news. Um, this is called living off the land, where you take the tools that a company has in their environment, things like PowerShell, some of the management tools, JavaScript, even a Word document, and you use it against the company. And that is really one of the most prevalent ways that attackers are getting in and moving through companies today. Look, I'm almost out of time, so I'm gonna jump ahead a little. Apologies for that. But I really wanted to end on good news, since I seem to have shared so much bad news. Um, so to get to that, I say first of all, these egregor guys. Good news is they've been arrested. They're in the UK, in the Ukraine, attacking people around the world. This used to be a problem. How do we get somebody attacking in one country? How do we arrest them in another? We've gotten much better at that. Here is some of the Lazarus gang. These are North Koreans, and the FBI's got them on their wanted list. So the law enforcement has made a lot of advancements. And if you ever see one of these, you've been going to a really bad site, because the FBI or the Justice Department or some international police force has captured the bad guys. Generally, these are dark web sites, and they put this up to let you know we got these guys, right? And it's to send a message. However, here's another one. This is the EMOT arrests, and these were a bunch of guys who were running spam distribution, and they would send out all sorts of malware in spam runs. Clearly, that's the police. They got arrested as well. So let me temper my good news with some bad news. This is some of the money that they confiscated from these guys. So while more and more of them are getting arrested, and that's really good, there's a lot of money to be made in cybercrime. So we'll continue to see people doing it. I'm going to end there, and I'm going to move to, or be happy to answer questions in any time I have left.
Awesome, Karen. Thank you very much for the talk. It was very, very informative. I actually found it pretty interesting. We do have a couple of questions that we're gonna read off from the session Q&A. So if anyone has questions, feel free to post them right now on the Q&A. The first thing that I see right here is, what kind of methods does FBI use to recover the stolen money? You said is more often than not returned.
I'm sorry, I didn't get it. You're going to have to ask me again.
Okay. Yeah. So it says here, what kind of methods does the FBI use to recover stolen money? You said it's more.
Oh, got it. Right. Yeah. So so what happens, I didn't say that, apologies. So in the BEC scams, what usually happens is that the finance department starts sending this money out. And so they're moving cash into some strange account, and it's the banks that notice it. And the banks go, this is kind of weird. You know, the banks have pretty good fraud departments. And so then they'll notify the FBI, and working with the FBI, they do their best to recover the money. And then they go tell the company, hey, did you know that you were sending money to a cyber criminal? And generally they don't. This even happens when breaches, where bad guys get into a company and they're hanging around there stealing secrets or whatever. Often it's the FBI that tells the company doesn't know. there's been a lot of work in the last several years on tools and companies building security operations centers to try to turn this around. This is kind of a common problem. The victim rarely knows they're a victim till it's too late. Good news in BEC though, a lot of that is recovered. About 60%, I think the stat is.
It's through the banks that monitor and administer the money. The next question is, it sounds like much of the cybercrime you mentioned revolves around social engineering in some way. What about actual technical vulnerabilities in, say, software or hardware? Does that account for anything in cybercrime, or is it mostly this idea of cheating or scamming people that maybe aren't tech savvy or susceptible?
Yeah, it's often a combination of both. I'd say there is a lot of, especially against enterprises, where vulnerabilities are being used to get into organizations. We're seeing a lot in remote control software, VPNs. Whenever there is Microsoft has recently had a handful of vulnerabilities in Exchange servers, and the bad guys are often faster to take advantage of those vulnerabilities than companies are to patch them. So, I don't have a stat for you, but yeah, it's both. It's absolutely both.
All righty. So this is a simple one, but I think one that's on the back of all our heads is, how do we get into this field?
Yeah, very appropriate question. I could tell you that a long time ago, I started in this field. I started in technical support. I moved into product management. And if you had told me when I started that I would be doing what I'm doing today, I wouldn't even understand what job you were talking about. So things change. But there is a huge need for security analysts today. There is a real shortage of that. Unfortunately, you don't just wake up one day and become, an experienced security analyst. I think one thing you have to have, you have to enjoy technology and have a great sense of curiosity about this sort of thing. I think work in IT so that you understand the systems and how an organization really works is important. So any time spent there, but I would say you need to get into the industry somewhere, and it won't necessarily be where you want to end up. It won't be where you end up, but because things will change. But if you can get into a company that works specifically on security, that's great. But if not, get into IT somewhere. So, one of the biggest challenges is most companies know what they need to do to harden their environments. They just can't do it. So IT has an incredibly important role to play, and they need to be enabled, and they need to get their chance to make a difference as well. So I think that's my answer.
That's a good answer. I mean, you just have to find your way, get in first, and find your interest. Someone asked, and I think this relates to like those North Korean criminals that are on the wanted list. Do you feel like the biggest change in cybercrime is hackers backed by nation states? How do you enforce that? Because you hear that in the media as well, like Russia or North Korea, sponsoring perhaps these hackers.
Yeah, North Korea is a really interesting case where that nation state has actually, is under incredible embargoes. It has incredible financial problems. One of the ways they've chosen to deal with it is cybercrime, and they not only use it for political purposes, these hackers, but they also use it for financial purposes to help support the nation. And they appear to be pretty unique that way. Overall, there's the old saying, war is politics by other means. In some ways, nation state hacking, if you will, is politics by other means. There's a lot of people who say it's war by other means, but I think that's a way to escalate things very quickly. But I think it certainly is politics by other means.
I think we'll have one more question. You mentioned that many of these scams are recycled evolutions of the same methods, whether you're talking about the Nigerian prince. Do you think this will always be the case, or are we going to see like new revolutionary methods of cybercrime? You know, have you seen anything like that or not?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting because I'd say one of the big crimes out there right now, which we don't have stats for, is stealing cryptocurrency. Right? People are having their wallets emptied out. There's been a couple of banks, if you will, who have shut down. So is that brand new? Because cryptocurrency is brand new. It's completely different. A lot of people, certainly people my age, don't really understand it. On and on. This is brand new. It's completely different. But is it really different than somebody on the street knocking you down and taking your wallet? It's kind of the virtual version of that, right? So I think you can make an argument both ways, whether this is, brand new or just an evolution. I'm arguing it's just an evolution. We're taking something that happened in the real world. It's just moved virtual. Like currencies become virtual. This is virtually having somebody steal your wallet.
Well said.
And a lot less chance of getting caught, I might add. So the other thing I would add, it's a scale, right? So how many people can you knock down and take their wallet in a day? Well, you can do thousands, if not more, virtually, right?
Well, I think that wraps up the questions.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here and giving us your time and helping us out. And thank you to all the attendees for showing up and listening to your very charismatic speech. It was very enjoyable and inspiring.
Yeah, it was. Thank you, Kevin, for the interesting topic and for taking the time and sharing your knowledge with us. We really do appreciate the time that you took.
Hey, I had a great time. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity. So, and good luck to everybody. I know you all have great careers. It's a wonderful field.
Yeah, definitely. It is a very interesting career to get into.